Let's start first with your involvement with Jigsaw and how that all came about.
Yeah, so I kind of got involved with Jigsaw when I was in school, so a good few years now. And I was first using them as like a service. I was struggling a little bit with my mental health in school and bullying. And when I went to them, I found them amazing. I found them super helpful, and I got so much out of the experience. I think it was like around six sessions I did with them. And then afterwards, maybe 2 or 3 years later, I'm on Fair City, and kind of I developed a platform with that role. And I kind of wanted to work with Jigsaw because I was so passionate about that organization and what they do for young people. And I was like, I would love to be involved in any way I can. So that's how I'm kind of involved with it.
If you don't mind, if we bring it back to those days when you actually reached out to use Jigsaw's services,
Yeah.
and years later for you to still have such affection for them that they, they really helped you when you may have needed them. What was the process like for you reaching out? Were you nervous, or did you just say, "Do you know what, I'm going to go for this"? Did you get advice from family or friends, or did you just take the leap?
No, I think the thing is, when you're in school, we all think we're tougher than we are. And, especially when you're in secondary school and in teenagers, it's just a crazy world. That's all you can explain it by. It's just crazy. But one of the days I was definitely struggling in school, and one of my teachers pulled me aside and she told me about Jigsaw. And then I rang them up and I booked a session. But that's how I kind of heard about them and got involved with them. It was through a teacher in my school. So I'm very grateful to that teacher.
I presume since then you've probably recommended the service to friends then as well who might be going.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of young people will come up to me and be like, I'm struggling in school, like, do you have any recommendations? Or parents would come up to my mum or me, and I'm always saying Jigsaw, because I think it's it's such a welcoming community and environment. It's not that scary. It's not like counseling or, you really need that thing. It's just a place and a community you can go to if you feel like you need help or you need to reach out to someone.
Last year, you were making headlines because you launched a fantastic blog. I'm a teenager, get me out of here.
Yeah.
Just a little bit about the blog. I see it's still active. You're still updating it, covering a range of themes. Give us an overview, first of all, because I think that a lot of young people listening need to hear about this blog and need to read it and get to know it, because not only do you write very well, I think the themes are very important. So over to you. Just give us an overview.
Thank you so much. So basically, I started this blog, years ago in my diary. I used to write what I was going through in school in my diary, and I used to change the people I was talking about to animals, because I didn't really want anyone to read my diary and see who I was talking about. And it was kind of that whole thing. I would have the animals, those people in my phone as animal emojis. So everyone just had an emoji that kind of correlated to them, whether their personality, their looks, or whatever. And I just started writing about it. And some of these stories actually were quite comical when you look back on it. And then at the time when I was experiencing it, like your crush turning you down or girls being mean to you, like it was the end of the world for 14-year-old me. It was the end of the world. But looking back on it, there's so much like comedy in it and growing up. And I just felt during lockdown, and we were all sitting at home doing nothing, I was like, you know what, maybe some of these stories might help other people. And also I enjoy writing, like why not publish them and see, if anyone else relates or has gone through similar things. And I did that, and it's been amazing to see, people relating to it and being like, I went through that, that's, and kind of creating that place where people can talk about what they went through, but in a fun way. You know what I mean?
Yes. But I think what's also really important too is sometimes we can diminish how we're feeling as teenagers by looking back with hindsight. And like, say, for example, that crush breaking your heart. Now you look back and say, okay, that wasn't the biggest deal in the world. But at the time, your feelings are also so valid, valid, and your confidence can be so rattled. And a girl being mean to you in school really is the end of the world, because it brings a lot of anxiety to approach the school door the following morning.
100%. Yeah. And also, like, especially why I wanted to create it was like what helped me through those little tough times was that having someone to relate to, being like, oh, I wasn't alone going through that. Because the worst feeling, I think, is that feeling of isolation and just loneliness that we all experience. But I feel if more people talk about it, then more people can relate to each other, and it just it can sometimes help in certain situations.
Absolutely. And relatability, that's even all the conversations we're having about Mind Your Noggin Day seems to be, you know, talk, nothing, like we can't control our thoughts. No one's going to think anything bad. You know, it's just so important to the weight will kind of immediately lift. If you don't mind, I
Yeah.
want to just read a quick extraction of your blog. Let's talk about chameleons. I don't know which person this is or if it's just an observation. But in my opinion, chameleons and humans have one thing in common. We change our colors in order to conform to society's, quote, norms. I feel I have been a chameleon in so many phases in my life. It began in school, trying to find my place in the social food chain. I tried to change myself in order to fit in and be accepted. I thought my differences were my weaknesses. I thought looking and acting a certain way, by changing my colours, I would be accepted one day into a group. First, it started off with my exterior. As of 11 years old, I wore blazers, big fluffy jackets and multicoloured tights. I loved bows and sparkles and I dressed how I wanted to dress. In my 6th class photos, everyone was wearing Hollister hoodies and jeans, while I wore a big yellow bow in my hair, yellow jeans and a stripy blazer. I didn't even realise I was dressed different until to the rest until years later. I was confident in myself. I didn't care what other people thought of me. But that all changed on the first day of secondary school. That morning I got up early, did my hair, plaited it and added 2 butterfly clips. I was really frightened of my first day because I knew nobody, and when I walked into the school, lots of girls wearing mascara and their skirts were rolled up. My skirt was so big for me it touched the floor. That skirt lasted me 6 years. And you go on to explain that it wasn't long until he got a Hollister jumper. This is the pressure that teenagers face, and unfortunately something like that has gone away. But what I think is a positive thing, and I'd love your insight in it as someone who's a good few years younger than me, is, you know, there's been so much talk in the media about individuality, about being different and owning how you're different. Do you think that that has taken hold and that people are a little bit more comfortable just being them, or do we still have a lot of work to do on that regard?
It's such a complicated one because I think social media has definitely helped in that regard of, like, you know, we can find people who we have things in common with, and it's great because there's now there's much more of a variety of people, and society is definitely opening up and becoming more open. However, I'm looking at my little baby cousins and it scares me to see them, you know, at 11, they're already wearing mascara and, like, I mean, I was still playing with dolls at 11, and the social media world has nearly made them grow up 10 times faster. So it's such a hard one to gauge because I'm not 100% sure. But
Yeah.
I do hope that, you know, people can now can be themselves more and feel safe going to school, even though they're different or they feel they're different, because, you know, our differences are our strengths. But it's a hard one to gauge whether social media and all is working in a positive or negative in that regard.
And I hope you're back wearing your butterfly clips, because butterfly clips and clips in general are so cool.
Yes.
I love my hair clips. Listen, just to finish, I want to ask you, Ella, how do you today mind your noggin?
I definitely just take a step back and I do things that I love, whether that be painting, reading, watching a movie, just self-care. And that's how I check in with myself. If I'm having a bad day, I go easy on myself, I'm kind to myself, and I just take that time for me.
And you prioritize that, I hope, too, as a young lady who's in a very big job at a very young age.
Yes. Yes.
Good to hear. Listen, Ella, an absolute joy to talk to you. Thanks so much for being a big part of FM104's Mind Your Noggin Day.
Thank you so much for having me.